Good evening. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Public Works Advisory Board of November 20th, 2019. All members of the board are present. Are there any board member announcements or presentations to be made at this time? Public comment period. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll continue to the consent agenda calendar. There's two items, the minutes of September 25th and the minutes of the October 16th meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Next item is item B2, the director's report. I'll pass that on to Rob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. As you know, the director's report is a summary of ongoing operations in the Public Works Department. So consolidated maintenance for kind of the dry side of Public Works, and then our utilities division for water and wastewater, and then a summary of engineering activities that have taken place. So you can see we've kept quite busy with the number of work orders we've addressed around town and consolidated maintenance, including some paving, storm drain repair, modifications to parking and installation of signs. On the water side, probably the highlight is operating our brackish water RO facility for the state water shutdown, which we were thinking was ending soon, but notified by the county that they need to make a repair to a valve. So we'll continue to operate our brackish water RO facility while the county repairs a automatic valve on the Choro Valley pipeline.
Is there a time estimate on that?
I think it's a few weeks to order parts, and I'll let Joe.
Yeah, the state water actually came back on Monday. They discovered a faulty valve in the system that actually feeds us and regulates our flow. So typically we'd be running right around 500 to 600 gallons a minute. The valve is slowly closing, so turning it off. So this morning we were down around 300 gallons a minute. Unfortunately, it's an internal component that they can't manually set the valve at a position, so it will actually go and shut down. They're anticipating parts to take between 5 and 10 days to get, and then another 2 or 3 days to fix. So we'll remain on our well water for approximately 2 more weeks.
Cool. Thank you.
I had a question. So is this an actuator within the valve, or is it something else?
So my contact at the county really is more of an office type contact. So I wasn't able to talk directly with the field staff, and they were just telling me it was something that as I probed them for questions, the information they have is that it's something internal to the valve itself, and that they can't manually set the position. So it's something that they can't just set the valve at an open position and continue to feed us water. So that's all the information I have.
That doesn't sound very intelligent on their part. Normally, something like that, you can take it apart and reset it, and it may slowly close again, but it might be worth our while to see if they'll disassemble the mechanism long enough to maybe extend or improve the water supply.
I have a quick question about that too. How long have we been on well water then, or?
So we started running our brackish water plant end of October. October 31st is actually when we started it up. We were actually blending at that time, partially with our well water and partially still on state water. State water actually turned off on the 1st. So we've been on since then. To actually, depending on where a resident lives within the community, it could take upwards of a week before they actually started seeing the actual water from the wells reach their homes. And again, when we go the other direction, when we switch back to state water, it can take upwards of a week to actually change out the water in the tank system and reach the residents.
Right. Okay. Because I did notice difference in taste in my water, tap water, and I thought it was time to replace my filter, but on my premises. But I guess that explains it. So,
yeah, we actually changed our disinfection method. When we go off of state water, we go from a form of combined chlorine, which it's a weaker disinfection product, but it remains in the system longer. It doesn't break down as long. And as long as you have an adequate amount of time to provide that disinfection, it's fine. It does the same job. And when they're actually disinfecting the water over at the treatment plant and coming from state water, that provides adequate treatment for us. But when we go off of state water to city water, we actually switch to a free chlorine, which is actually a more powerful disinfection product. And it essentially, we call it burning the system. It gives a very thorough, healthy disinfection. So it does break down some of the buildup on the pipes and the tanks. And a lot of times it does impart some taste and odor in the residents. So it's not really taste and odor that you're getting from our well water itself. A lot of it is actually from cleaning out the pipes and stuff. So during that time, we also accelerate our flushing program, and we flush all the dead ends in the city. So some of you might have noticed the crews out flushing water from the hydrants and the lower spots of the city, and that's exactly what we were doing, is actually bringing in that higher strength disinfectant water to essentially clean and flush those pipes.
That brings up another, when we go to the water recycling facility and we start using the wells, will we be going to the free chlorine process for disinfection then?
Well, we'll still be utilizing state water as our primary source as long as it's available. And as long as we're on state water, we match with the combined chlorine. You can't mix and match disinfection processes in there, so because they actually fight each other when you do it, so you actually have to switch over to one or the other. And then the state will always remain on combined chlorine. So.
On the engineering capital project side, really no change in our Highway 41 project, although we do now have a updated contract with the design engineers, and we're still working with our funding partners at SLOCOG and Caltrans on funding options. SLOCOG has allocated additional resources to the project, but is expecting the city to use all means possible to come up with its share. We'll need, about $1 million more to deliver that project, and it could be delivered through city-acquired grants or other sources of funding. So when the ATP, the Alternative Transportation Program grant application becomes available later next year, we'll be making an application for that grant to try to bridge that funding gap. On our pavement work, our 2018-19 work is complete, and the contractor, we made the final retention payment to the contractor. We received 2 proposals from engineering firms to update our assessment on our streets, and we're reviewing those proposals. One was from PEI, Pavement Engineering, and the other one was from GHD, who's done formerly Omni Means, GHD. So they're a multinational engineering firm that happens to have an office in San Luis Obispo. So they proposed on it. We'll be completing that review and recommending one of them to the city manager likely by the first part of next week. Once that assessment is complete, we'll have a new recommended street list that we'll be bringing forward to PWAB for a springtime rehab work, rather than trying to fight as we have for the last 3 years or so, trying to fight the rain at about this time of year. I'm sure if we would have issued a pavement contract this week, it would start raining, and maybe that's the way we end the drought. But we'll be issuing that contract in the springtime to take advantage of less rainfall towards the end of the season rather at the beginning of the rainy season. Joe and I are working on RFP for the 3 water system projects, or water and wastewater utility projects. So the Nutmeg pressure zone improvements, which includes the replacement of the Nutmeg tank, and then improvements to the wastewater collection system for the Beachcomber line and Main Street and Tascadero Road. Those were identified as the highest priority projects in the One Water Plan. We have a few small capital improvement projects that we're working on. Our lighting access control project is out for quotes for North Point, so we'll be installing 1 new street light in the parking lot there, and then relamping the existing lamps to LED for more energy efficiency. And then installing some sort of likely split rail fencing along the edge of that parking lot to discourage folks from driving up the slope there, which happens occasionally. Ms. Hansen's project that she's project manager on, the Boat Rents-Off Pocket Park project, came in well above the engineer's estimate and above the grant money that we had for that project. So we are revisioning that project and peeling off pieces, because it had so many components. It had landscaping, it had a little bit of concrete, had a little bit of asphalt work. We're peeling off those projects that our consolidated maintenance crews can do, asphalt and concrete work, and probably rebidding that as more of a landscape project, hoping for more reasonable prices on that project. And then we've been approached by one of the local faith organizations to take on the bocce ball greenhouse project at Dunes and Shasta as a volunteer project. So we'll be meeting with them this week and see what their organization can take on. They have several licensed contractors as members, and they're looking for a project that they can do. The Cloisters project, council approved that concept landscape plan. We'll be working on likely a budget amendment for mid-year to perform those projects. When we met with Cloisters folks in our last kind of walkabout that we did there, one of their suggestions was, since we've recently done some major improvements to the center median there, is preserve those improvements that the city has done, but take out the bad stuff. Don't spend $155,000 ripping out landscaping that they kind of like there now. So just deal with kind of that older woody landscaping and keep the good landscaping. So we'll be working with the representatives from the community group to deliver that project. We have a bunch of development review projects that continue to be on the project list that are working their way through various stages. We have one new project on there. Excuse me. We have the Vistra Energy has proposed a battery project for their power plant site. So that just came in last week. So we've just started review on that. And then,
Hey, Rob, on the dollar store, that's done, isn't it? I mean, it's open.
yes, you are correct. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure I wasn't missing
Yes,
something.
yes, I missed that one.
Been in too many meetings.
Yeah, they're both open.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you were talking about the old dollar.
No, that was the Cookie Crock revisions to the new dollar store. And still no response back from everybody's favorite fast food restaurant, or not favorite fast food restaurant, Sonic. So, but they have extended they requested an extension on their building permit application, so they're still interested in a project there.
Is there ever a time when they reach the end of their extensions and the property is up for sale again or whatever? Or do they own the property?
They actually own the property there, so likely we won't do. Typically, we don't do extensions if they haven't pulled their permit by the next building permit cycle. So we don't go on beyond too many building permit cycles there, and we're looking on a new building permit cycle coming up here at the end of the year. Council has adopted the new building code, and it goes into effect January 1. And just before this meeting, we reviewed the 60% plans for the water reclamation facility for both the site and the conveyance system. And those are currently up on the city's website. We do have a couple copies in our office. If you don't want to scroll through on the screen, we have 11 by 17 copies of those in our offices if you want to come by and take a look. That concludes the presentation of the item, and we'll be happy to try to answer any of your questions.
Thank you very much. Let's see. Go down to Tori, see if he has any questions on your report.
I don't have any questions on the report.
Okay. How about you, John?
I have a few questions popped up while you were kind of going over them. So is it my understanding now that you have it's not preliminary design, but you have a proposed design for 41 and Atascadero?
We have gone through the intersection control evaluation on there, so we completed that stage. We're in the PAED stage, so we have preliminary engineering, environmental determination. So we have the preliminary design out of the intersection control evaluation. The Caltrans preferred alternative is a roundabout there, although we're carrying the signalization option to address in the environmental document. likely a mitigated negative declaration on that project. Caltrans is the lead agency on that. And right now it is being reviewed by their cultural resources staff there.
I understand that's going to be bloody, so.
It could be.
Yes. So, and then on pavement management, you were coming up with some new standards include in the pavement management plan, is that right?
So we last assessed all the streets in a detailed manner in 2008, so it's time for a complete reassessment of those streets. And the last pavement management plan did not include some of the techniques that we've, sorry. Before I start coughing again, some of the techniques that we've currently used, like the CAPE seals, the multi-layered chip seals, and microsurfacing, weren't included as rehab methods in our current pavement management plan. So we want to address those in that plan. So we will republish that pavement management plan, and out of that will come a new 5-year program for our streets.
Okay, how about the rototilling the existing pavement, where you go in and rototill it up and put new or asphalt in it? Is that one of the things that you're planning on?
Likely not in place reclamation. That's very expensive, but what we did on Ponderosa was we pulverized the existing road surface, compacted it, and did a triple layer chip seal on top of that. You don't really end up with a new structural section other than the rehab base section there, but it has held up to, with the exception of the spot that has a slight drainage issue, it has held up to the trash truck, so that will be assessed in the plan.
And so when's the revisions to the payment plans expect to be out?
I think we have a schedule of about 3 months to get that work done. So February of 20.
And when will the PWAB get a chance to look at it?
Likely about that same time frame.
Okay. So you talked about nutmeg. That was one. So Beachcomber, is that the line which has got a lot of crushed pipe in it?
It's a very shallow line, and it's in easement areas, not out in the street. So we'll be also assessing to get, where feasible, to get that line out of side yards and through backyards, and get that line out into the street where it'll be easier to maintain. And then there's poor lateral connections there. The pipe is shallow, so it's old and has been crushed in a few places. It's cracked. Get a significant amount of inflow in that line there.
Will you need to put in a new pump station for that, or do you think you'll be able to make it work by gravity?
There's an existing pump station that serves that, Lift Station 1, which is at the Cloisters, and the sanitary sewer model that Corollo ran for our One Water plan shows that still meeting peak flows there with that lift station.
How about the invert? Are you going to have to make can you make that sewer appropriate depth, or are you going to have to do some modifications to it?
I don't think we're significantly going to change the line and grade of that sewer line and create new pump stations out there. We're going to try to work with what we have.
Okay. I'd be interested to see what your proposed design for that would be. And then the last comment I had was, so for the boat rinse off, you had, little pieces here and there, plus a major landscape for the boat rinse off Pocket Park. How did the proposed landscaping costs from the contractor match up with the engineer's estimate?
It was about 3 times as high.
Well, I mean, everything together is 3 times the size.
Yeah,
but-
the landscaping, I forget exactly how much square foot, but it was over $10 per square foot for these plants.
So are you going to come up with some different landscaping then?
Yeah, well, actually what we did was we took all the estimates that we had and he kind of averaged them all to see because the prices were kind of all over the place in different areas. So we averaged the landscape price to come up with the new estimate. But from what I've looked at in the pricing, that they're nowhere near that price, So I think the landscaping they'll keep the same plants and everything in there. It's part of the bioretention facility.
Okay, and let's see. Was there anything else which popped up? Okay, thank you.
Okay, Jen?
On the Highway 41 thing, I was reading somewhere last week that, the SLOCOG has renewed their interest or their money that they're going to put in on it. But did I also see that the amount that they're asking from the city is less than what it was? Is their estimate of the whole job lowered?
So they've increased their contribution to the intersection, which reduced the city's amount that we would
That's
have
what I
to come up with. But they also promised us that if we cannot meet our local match, that they will reallocate that towards other projects.
I saw that, yeah. And how long do we have to meet what was the timeline, a year? Or?
We have about a year to do that. They want us to be able to compete in the next ATP cycle, the Alternative Transportation Program. That's where perhaps a significant source of funding could be for the project, that grant.
But did you say earlier that alternative transportation cycle begins late next year?
In July, I believe, is when they'll call for grants. So
we'll still be able to meet.
Yes, we'll still be. Yeah, that's the program that SLOCOG sent us down the path of. So.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then just another curious question. I was thinking here that on the water operations that you responded to standing water across from Bayside Cafe. Isn't that, just curious, isn't that state property, or is that one of the things that overlaps that the city does something and the state does something?
Yeah, that actually is in the state park kind of area down there, and it was just an after-hour call-out as a service. We just want to make sure that nothing's going on that we don't know about, because we do provide water service over there that they handle. It is city water that heads that direction, but what it wound up being was one of the boat owners were just running their village pump with a hose. But again, it's just a good precaution to go out there to make sure something more serious is not happening.
So since I'm still on that state and out at the Rock, whose property is that? State or state park? City or state park?
The city owns the majority of the parking area, but when you get close to the Rock and about where the gate is, that becomes state property. So the Rock itself is state lands, and kind of the parking area that's been closed off on the backside of the Rock is state of California.
And the parking lot?
The majority of that dirt
ours.
parking area is City More Base.
Okay, thank you.
You've answered all the questions I had, but I'm looking at the monitor. Are we offline right now?
I don't know.
That's why I hesitated to start the
Maybe
meeting.
one of us can go back and ask AGP that, because this is supposed to show.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay. We're online. There we go.
Way to go, Steve.
Thank you.
I'm done.
Okay. Chris?
Yeah, just a couple small questions. Back to the Highway 41 interchange. So since they've kind of lowered, what's our matching portion now? Not 50/50?
About $1 million that we have to come up
And we were
with.
over $3 million originally, right?
Yes, it was about a $7.1 million total project cost.
Right. And so DOT's running point on it, so they're flushing out the environmental impact report and any of the cultural, archaeological potential issues.
Well, we're providing all the technical information,
Okay.
and they're reviewing that technical information. They're the lead agency, but we do all the groundwork on that project.
And at one time, there was some discussion if the funding couldn't be achieved, that there was going to be review of potential, alternate patterns for a temporary period of time. Is that going to probably go off now that the funding's dropped?
Likely
for us?
we'll not pursue that and spend a lot of engineering money on alternate means, but the design will still move forward at the preliminary stage with both the signalization and the roundabout option carrying forward to, although the roundabout is Caltrans' preferred option.
Sure. And then the cloisters, I didn't know if there was any timeline applied to that yet, or is that something that will be achieved in 2020, 2021?
Our goal is to work within the Cloisters Assessment District budget, which they have about $150,000 in their accumulation fund for these capital projects. The community has goals beyond just the median to rehab that they would like to see done. So we'll work as cost effectively possible to achieve those goals in the landscaping, but other projects that Cloister residents want to look at is the existing pond out there and how we can there's been a high growth of reeds out there, and it's kind of blocked the bird viewing area. Mm-hmm. So working with our environmental partners to trim those reeds there. And then other projects out there would include the play equipment replacement. Right. Because that's still original construction out there from the 90s, and it does need some help out there.
Yeah, I think it's all wood and gravel. Yeah. And then one question, it wasn't on here, but I just noticed during soccer season that all the trees went out of the parking lot at Lila Kaiser, and then Jersey barriers were put in there. I was just wondering, if something happened to those, or if there was a disease, or what transpired.
It's actually my understanding that came up. The topic came up to my attention in, I believe, around soccer season, and we did a little research. They were actually removed back in December, and then the reason was the majority were dead or dying. Yeah, a lot of cracks in the trunks that were remaining, and there'd actually been, I believe, one automobile that had been damaged by a falling limb. Okay. And the concrete barriers showed up recently. They're kind of on loan from the old Hanson plant, just to keep people from driving through that area and from from hitting bumper to bumper. So.
Okay. I only have a couple questions or comments. I'd noticed that on one of the media things that there was talk about, some little cars, Mini Coopers, that were driving across the bicycle bridge. I guess they're small enough to get through past the barrier. Is there something that can be done about that, or did you hear about that?
I actually didn't hear about that, but I ride that bridge quite a bit. I noticed there are bumper marks on the center bollard there, so I know vehicles use that as a shortcut quite a bit. I know our police occasionally goes out there to enforce that issue. It's Usually we hear about it well after the fact and don't have a license number to trace that down. But those are, one of the requirements is those are flexible bollards there. So if somebody does run into one as they're riding, they're not completely injured. So, and fire likes them better, so they don't have to stop the engine. That bridge is wide enough for our full-size fire vehicles to make it across. And
Right,
it's structural.
I understand that.
Yeah.
That's, the emergency aspect of that. If someone does have a photograph and they do get a license plate number, what can be done about that?
I would send that to our police for enforcement of that, because there's no vehicular traffic.
Even if the police, it's not a police camera and it's not witnessed by a police officer, they're still able to deal with that?
I'll ask the chief and get back to you, but I think there would at least be a conversation that would be had, probably with the driver's parents, because from what I understand, it may be some of our students that are using that as a shortcut.
Okay. And let's see, I was asking you this before the meeting. I'll ask it again because, some people have been complaining about what's going to happen to the businesses that are going to be affected by the laying down the lines there on Quintana. And they talk about, well, it would be better if it was out at Toro Creek. But in the event that the plant was located out at Toro Creek, wouldn't all of the businesses on North Main Street be affected by lines being run?
Yeah, we still need to do construction in Main Street, and likely similar impacts would occur by trenching in Main Street as they would in Quintana.
Okay, so no matter where the work has to be done, there's still going to be impacts to people.
Yes.
Yeah, and businesses. All right, thank you. Any additional questions on the director's report? Seeing none, then we'll move on to item B2, which is the review of the city's 2019 water loss audit. Damaris, you're on.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. So tonight we will be going over the 2018 water loss audit. Let's see here. So first you may ask, what is a water audit and what is an AWWA water loss audit? So a water loss audit is similar to a financial audit. It's checking in how much comes into a system and comes out of a system, where those losses might be. Morba has always done some sort of a water loss calculation, not to this detail, but we always knew how much came in, how much was sold. But in 2017, California State Senate Bill 555 requires all water suppliers to submit a water loss audit to the California Department of Water Resources by October 1st annually. The American Water Works Association, or AWWA, developed a water audit software for all urban water suppliers to use to conduct their annual water loss audit. So this makes it simple and straightforward straightforward at least for everyone that's turning one in to the Department of Water Resources. They're turning in the same audit. And the audit is based on this manual, this M36 manual here. So what is water loss? So water loss is simply the amount or percent of water loss that is lost out of the utility. But there's different types of water losses. There's real water losses and there's apparent water losses. Real water losses are the losses in utilities that include the physical escape of the water from the pressurized piping system as leakage. So real losses are leakage losses. And apparent losses are losses that occur due to inaccurate metering of customers, theft, billing, and accounting practices, amongst many other things. So these are all non-revenue waters. They're both real and apparent losses. So first you have to Basically, it has clips of different parts of the water audit, and these little white boxes are the only boxes you can fill out. All the yellow boxes are calculated or known values. So first you determine how much water is coming into the system. So the volume of your own sources, that volume is the amount the city produces. So when the city is like now not on state water and we're producing our own water from the wells, it goes through our brackish water reverse osmosis plant. So that amount of water that we produce goes in that volume of own sources. Water imported is the amount of water we import from the state water or we get from the SLO County Flood Control District. Water exported would be any water that is sold or exported out of the city, but the city doesn't export any water at this time. So the total water supply is the volume of water of own sources plus the imported water minus any exported water. Authorized consumption, that's the amount of water that's leaving the distribution system. So there's various types of that. So there's billed metered, and that's the water that is distributed to all the customers through a water meter. So that's your single-family homes, every commercial, industrial facility, city facilities like this building here. There's a meter and there's a bill associated with it. That comes from our water billing software, and we can pull that out, and that's where we get that number there. Billed unmetered is water that is distributed to a customer, but the amount of water is not metered. So those are typically your flat rate or flat fee customers. Morro Bay doesn't have any customers like that. All of our meters are, all of our bills are metered. And then unbilled metered would be unbilled consumption that is included, but the meter is, it's metered, but there's no generating of funds there. So if water came to this building, it was metered, but we didn't have a bill, but we do have a bill for this building, so it's a billed metered. And then there's unbilled unmetered. So that's the consumption that is neither metered or revenue generating. So that's your firefighting activities, flushing of water or sewer mains, street sweeping, fire flow tests, numbers like that. So that's a number that's hard to quantify because you don't know how much it is. It's not metered, it's not billed. So the manual suggests that you have a default meter or default value in there, and they use 0.25% of the water supplied. So that's where we get the 2.63. So now we can determine how much water loss we have. So you take your water supplied minus your authorized consumption, and that gives you your amount of water loss. So there we have 41.69 acre feet. But like I said, you have different kinds of water losses. So you have two types here, apparent losses and real losses. Apparent losses include unauthorized consumption, which is like theft or illegal connections of the water system, meter tampering, illegal use of hydrants, and again, a default value is put in for that one. So they suggest a 0.25% of the water supplied. Custom metering inaccuracies and systematic data handling errors are the other two values. So custom meter inaccuracies are inaccuracies in the registered meter consumption by a retail customer meter. So as meters age, they tend to under-register the amount of water that runs through them. So the default value they have for that is 1% of the authorized consumption. And then systematic data handling errors is caused by accounting omissions, gaps in policy and procedures, data gaps in data entries, various ways you can have just data handling errors. And again, you have a default value of 0.25% and it goes against the water supplied. So these are non-revenue waters. They're water loss plus unbilled metered and unbilled unmetered. So then you have unavoidable annual real losses. So no water system is completely leak-free. Every water system has leaks, and the unavoidable annual real losses accounts for this type of water. Unavoidable annual real losses are a reference of real or leakage losses in a water system that cannot be totally eliminated. The UARL is the low limit of leakage that can be achieved if all of today's best technologies was successfully applied and the water utility based on its characteristics. So the water utility's characteristics would be the length of the mains, the number of service connections, the average distance to customer lateral, average operating pressures. Those are all put in and evaluated and put into an equation that gives you the UARL. The UARL is basically used as a ratio with the real losses to give you the infrastructure leakage index. So the infrastructure leakage index is a performance indicator quantifying how well the distribution system manages the control of leakage or real losses. So a low ILI value indicates that the water utility has managed leakage down to its UARL. So Morro Bay's ILL is 0.29. Cost of water. So to understand the cost of water loss, the annual operating budget, customer unit retail cost, and variable production cost are accounted for. The customer retail unit represents the charge the customers pay for water service. This amount is applied to the apparent losses, since these losses represent water reaching the customer but not being paid for. And the variable production cost is the cost to produce this and supply the next unit of water. So how much per acre foot? And this variable is production cost is applied to real losses. So next with the audit, you have your data validity. So next to every single one of the boxes that you can enter in a number, there's this little number next to it. It's kind of highlighted there, and when you hover over it, you get this validity scale. So this is the validity scale score is a determination of rating scale to determine the accuracy of the number entered. So, for example, if this one I've highlighted is water imported, and it has a 7, so you have to you go through this grading scale and you see where you fall. We fall at a 7 because water imported is the water from the county, and the county does electronic calibration, but they don't do meter accuracy testing. So we qualify for 6, but we don't qualify for 8, because meter accuracy testing and electronic calibration has to be met for 8, so we end up with a 7. So what those numbers do is they tell you the accuracy of what you have entered in there, and then that gets a weighted average at the end and gives you your entire score of validity. So we got a 60 out of 100, you'll see in a second. And then there's also the validation of the entire audit. So the regulation requires that the utility have their water loss audit validated by a certified water loss validator. This validator has to be someone that did not complete the audit or doesn't have any input into the audit. So this year, the staff used a staff member from the city of SLO to complete our audit, and in the coming years, we hope to have someone here certified so that we can kind of return the favor and help each other. Otherwise, you can hire consultants that'll do this for you as well. So once you're completed, they give you the water audit findings. The water audit provides these performance indicators to sum up the audit results. The water audit validation score is 60 out of 100. So that's all those little scores. The bigger numbers in there get weighted differently. So, you know, it's not really a 60% like we got a D on this. It's more of just that's the accuracy of those numbers. And there's different ways you can get those numbers up higher to get your validation score up a little higher. The results also include apparent and real loss amounts, total water loss, the cost of apparent and real losses, percent of water loss compared to total water supplied, non-revenue water as a percentage, apparent and real losses per service connection, and also provides the infrastructure leakage index, which you see ours is 0.29. So the last section of the audit shows priority areas for attention, or areas that you can make some improvements. So water imported, billed metered, and customer meter inaccuracies were the 3 highlighted for us. So water imported, it's because it's the largest number in your water supply. The more accurate that number is, the more accurate your audit is going to be. So one of the things we could do is with, that meter is just calibrated. It's not meter tested. So we could see if we could add another meter onto that and kind of recheck that number, make sure that number is super accurate. Also, billed metered and customer meter inaccuracies. That's also the largest number there in the authorized consumption. So to get a more accurate number on that, we could have a meter accuracy testing program or a meter replacement program, because again, they're going to read under register as they get older, or an AMR and AMI meter data system. The more accurate that volume number is, the higher your validity score is. So that from 60 out of 100, we could raise that number up. But overall, Morro Bay has a water loss of only 4.2%, and the average utilities has 5 to 15%. And our ILI is very low at 0.29 when an average is around 1. So you'd kind of have to weigh out whether it's worth doing some of those, because all the other improvements that you're going to do are going to have costs associated with them too. But that pretty much sums up what I have there, and I'm here for questions.
All right, thank you. We'll start with Chris this time. Do you have any questions at this time? Okay, Steve?
I'm a little confused, Damaris. If you're taking the losses as 2.5%, because they give you that number, that's an assumption. So the whole thing's kind of an assumption, isn't it? I mean, I'm kind of losing what this even tells you if you're already putting in, you're basing everything on assumptions, Am I missing something? I just don't see what the validity of this is. If it doesn't tell you what your losses are, it tells you what assumed losses may be, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah,
am I wrong? I've never seen one of these before, so it's out of my wheelhouse. So
yeah, they give you those assumed default values because they're not something that a lot of the utilities track, but you can, and they give you a lot of tips and reasons why to track those sorts of things if you can, to try to put more of a real value in there, or to try to put even a percent that is more accurate for yours. But without tracking those things, there has to be some kind of value in there to show you what that.
So it's strictly because we don't track it,
yes,
is what I'm hearing. Oh, okay. I don't know how this helps you, you know what I'm saying, at the end of the day, but that's all I have.
Okay, Jane.
I had sort of the same questions. I read the whole thing, made a lot of notes, and thought, well, what am I finding out here? Because our score is 60 out of 100, but then our water loss is low and our ILI is low, and so I thought that should be more. But anyway, I want to thank you for writing this as well as you did. It was very easy to follow, even though I made a lot of notes, and then the answer was in the next paragraph. But I explained it very well, so thank you very much for that.
Okay, John?
Yeah, well, it kind of answer why they do the assumption is we know 4% is the system loss, and it's just a way to allocate to whether you can make an estimate if it's worth a lot of effort to fix it. But one of the questions which did pop up in my head is, do we have a meter replacement program?
No, we do not. They get replaced periodically. I don't know, you could probably speak on it more, but we don't have an actual program set, no.
What criteria do we use for replacing water meters?
So in the past, we've looked at age of meter and area of town. So that's what we've been doing. And, in the most recent years, the last couple, we're actually looking to kind of revamp where we should be spending. The previous water supervisor kind of had a good handle on it because he kind of been here throughout the years and kind of knew where the older meters were. So it was kind of, just that touch and feel type thing. So we're actually going to go into a more official program and start replacing more of that. And so we're looking at that currently.
Is there any record of what type of meter has been installed?
There is, and that is what we used for some of the criteria when we did some of the bigger replacements. Were type of meters, age of meters, and it went per area of town too. So as areas were developed, that's typically that style meter and that age was replaced if we knew it was giving us problems or we knew we were seeing a lot of failures in that type of meter. So it's just we have to formalize a program right now, and that's what we're looking at.
What sort of things are you considering for that program?
So right now with our CityWorks program, we're able to identify and track where we're having the problem, the type of meters that are having the problem. So right now we've been using CityWorks for about a little over a year almost, and it's still kind of coming up into its own. But we also have we're utilizing. City of San Luis Obispo, one of their head of distribution is coming over and consulting us on all areas of distribution, kind of looking at that and providing some of their expertise and what they've used in the past and bringing those to us. So
I assume, what sort of condition is the main part of Morro Bay, and how about North Morro Bay? What parts of North Morro Bay are you beginning to pay attention to for checking the meters?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. What I can tell you though is when I have looked at it in the past, we have replaced quite a few meters by percentage wise, and we do have a lot of the newer style meters and are standardizing our meters, and that's been a long-term goal of the water department staff is having the same meters out there and the same manufacturer, and that's definitely the direction we're going. Again, program's still in its infancy to actually get it down and documented. So that is something that we will be bringing back to you of an official program and what we're doing. So right now I don't have any hard numbers to share with you.
So do you, I know that the meter at my house is read electronically. So how many, is that common for the town, or do you?
Actually, we're installing meters that could be read electronically, but currently we don't have any electronically read meters in the town. So, the one that was installed in your residence is one that probably can be read electronically, but it's not currently.
So what was the guy on the Vespa driving around with a little meter wand on?
So what he uses his little wand on is typically to clean the glass off and to actually manually record the numbers.
Okay. So, all right. Well, I'm curious. I'd be interested to see how you can rationalize or make easier but more effective monitoring what your meters are doing.
Yeah, we definitely would like to look back into an automatic meter reading program. There has been some studies that definitely show more accuracy, a reduction in staff time, and a more robust system and tracking. So we'll be looking at that as part of the overall meter program, and we'll be bringing something back. I would like to just add on the water audit, though. While for us, it really doesn't show like it's giving us a whole lot of valuable information. It kind of confirms what we already know and that we're looking at. But there's a lot of communities that don't. So the ones that don't, it really shines a light on. So that is the benefit of this program, of why it is a mandatory requirement. It just has a requirement to get the community and the public works staff to really look at and go, hey, are we having high water losses out there that we can't explain? So that is why it's a double check. Our town has done very good with water loss and identifying leaks, and that it's just a double check. While For us, it might not provide a whole lot of information, but statewide, we like to think that it is providing information for those that aren't having a keen eye on their systems.
Yeah.
All right, Troy?
Yeah, just so I'm glad we brought up that there's a lot of estimated data inputs here, estimated values for data input, which is just out of necessity what you have to do. But just to make the point, though, there are some empirical data values that drive the model as well. I mean, the water supplied, some of the costs of production of water, that data is as actual data. I mean, those are not estimated values; those are real values. And one of the things, though, on the water losses, apparent losses, and real losses slide. There, and you have along, like you explained, the validity scale for some of these data values. Some of them are more valid, some of them are less valid. But I was interested in, you had these default values that you selected for example, unauthorized consumption or systematic data handling errors, customer metering inaccuracies. The one on customer metering inaccuracies, was that just and that has a validity score of 3, but that's you didn't itemize whether that was the default value or was that some value you put in.
The 3 is actually a value that I read through the grading criteria and it came up with 3. It had to do with how the meters are read and your replacement program and stuff like that.
Well, the value of 10.188.
That value comes from, it's 1% of the water supplied.
Oh, okay. That's the recommended default value based on the criteria.
All of these here are yellow. These aren't numbers that only the white boxes I can put anything in. So this whole page right here, it's all calculated.
Oh, okay.
And the 3 of them there are all by those percentages there. So the percentages on the right-hand side.
Oh,
that's
okay.
What calculates that's what calculates.
Well, the other thing on this page is that the water losses that are estimated at 41.69 acre feet per year are pretty equivalent, not exactly, but pretty equivalent to the non-revenue water that the system's tracking, 44.32 acre feet per year. Is that an interesting correlation?
Yeah, I think it's because the unbilled, unmetered is 0.25%, and so is the unauthorized consumption in this point. So
they just both happen to be.
Yeah, it makes them both. So, excuse me, in this manual, it talks about in other areas using different percentages, but in California, for unauthorized consumption, they suggest 0.25. In some areas, it was as much as 1 or 1.25. So it depends on where you are, apparently, and what state you're in.
I see. So, well, if that's the case, though, it sort of suggests that there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the non-revenue water is sort of the place of the water loss of the system in a way.
Yeah, so that non-revenue water is the water loss plus unbilled metered, which we don't have any, and then the unbilled unmetered, which is that assumption number.
Right, but since most of it seems like the great majority of the water loss isn't necessarily unbilled, unmetered, and billed unmetered. Anyway, it seems like it's more of the
general water loss.
Well, the general non-revenue water that's being flushed or used indiscriminately or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Okay, that's about it. Thanks.
Okay. I only have a couple questions. On that unbilled, unmetered, do you, since we don't really have lots of fires in town, but every now and then we do you keep track of when those occur to see if there's an anomaly in the water flows from the regular operations of street flush, hydrant flushing and things? Or
We actually keep pretty decent records of the flushing of the water lines and the sewer mains and street sweeping, but the firefighting is a little bit more difficult, but there is ways that we could. They have a meter, I think, on their truck. There is ways that we could. But if you don't have a good, solid number for all of those ways, you really kind of have to go to that default number.
Yeah.
It's hard to use. Well, part of it's from this real number, and part of it's a percentage.
Okay. And back on where John was talking on the meters, about how many meters do we replace a year?
Yeah, this is going to be a very rough number, and I can bring
I
something
understand.
back, but I'd say on average, a month we're probably replacing anywhere from 2 to 5 meters for failure for one reason or another. Either it's starting to leak, it stopped reading, that type of stuff. So we go back when we have rereads, meaning the water meter is not changing. We go out and we check and we see if the residence is still occupied and if water's still flowing there and the meter's not recording, we change it out. So again, very very rough number, but I'll make a note and bring something back at the next meeting.
Okay. I was just curious as to what some of the methods are, because I think I'd mentioned at the previous meeting how my meter had also just been replaced, and I was gone most of the 2-month period, and so I was showing pretty much zero water flows for a couple months while I wasn't there. So I'm wondering whether things like that trigger something where a meter that is reading accurately and not leaking or something might get replaced simply because not knowing what a person's life schedule is.
Yeah, typically we do go out and we check. A non-water use in the billing department does flag us, and again with the City Works program, it alerts us. We go out there and check, but our standard procedure is to actually run water at the house, and if no one's home, we come back and make an appointment and to make sure that the meter is not recording. So we do have procedures in place, and but when they check, if they saw some seepage or leakage in the bottom of the meter box, that could have been the reason why your meter might have got replaced. I don't know the exact details there, but there's always other things that we are typically do find when we do these low reads. It's not always that the meter is not recording flow. There's other things. The glasses get cracked on it, or they're just not readable. That's one of the reasons that we replace quite a bit too. The meter readers no longer can read the numbers, so that's pretty common that we replace meters for that.
Okay, and do we have a master list of every meter in town as to when it was installed, the last time it was replaced, and the model of what it was?
The water billing has a lot of that information. They, at least now especially, they put in when it was installed, the type, and their meter read and all that. I think it goes back pretty far.
Okay,
So
since you were
there's-
talking about, changing out old ones that are just old rather than necessarily a problem issue. So, on the new style meters, you mentioned that they are not being read electronically, but they have the capability of being read electronically. Is there a price difference between this new style of meters than what we had been using?
There is. It's a very minimal price difference in the $10 $10-$20 range, but it's a module. You actually have to buy the module and plug it in, depending on how you're going to automatically read it, if that is the case. So as we replace meters, it's just prudent to put in the newer style meters. If we do go to an automatic meter reading system, we can buy the modules, or if we go to an outside company, they can come in and just install the modules. So we're definitely preparing for that direction. If the community ever decides that's a good direction to go in, and if we can show a return on the investment, that's the direction we'd go.
Okay, so we're stepping that way without officially saying we're going to a full electronic.
Yeah, we're definitely preparing for the future. That is the direction that communities are going in, and actually, while you can find the meters that don't have that capability, it's pretty rare, and it's actually they're less available. So this is a very readily available meter that we use. It's a standard off-the-shelf one that the other communities in our area use. So it makes accessibility and everything a lot easier for us.
All right, thank you. Are there any additional questions of Damaris or staff on the water report? Do you want us to need an approval, or we're just receiving and you've received our comments? Is that all that's required for us?
Yeah, we're just receive your comments, and we'll incorporate any modifications into the next water loss audit.
I had one question popped up. So once we get the water reclamation facility in place, is that when you'd start applying some thought towards a meter program, or are you doing it now?
It's actually on my availability. It's definitely on my list of things to do. It's not. It doesn't have to occur after the wastewater treatment facility. It's just on my time availability. So it's definitely right now the capital projects that Rob mentioned earlier. Getting that RFP on the street is the top priority. So we can actually start getting that process. So it's. I don't want to declassify the importance of it and call it a fill-in project, but truly that's what it is. It's just there's only so many hours in the day, and it's on the radar. We know we want to do it because that is a revenue generator. Basically, by replacing meters, as meters get older, they actually don't record as accurately as a newer meter. They actually allow more water to be used and not record the full usage. So there's a potential to actually generate more income and revenues for the city by replacing those meters.
And is in the budget for maintaining the system there, is there like a line for replacing meters, or is it just kind of thrown in everything?
It's actually we have a line item for distribution system supplies, so it's actually included with new services supplies and stuff like that. So and to fix service line leaks and the smaller types of leaks. So it's definitely lumped in a bigger line item. So if we go out and do a large meter replacement project, that definitely would be a capital project, and we do a capital improvement project, it would be budgeted and approved through the city council during their budget process.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? Okay, then. Any future agenda items you'd like to tell us about, Rob, that you know of right now, or?
Well, of course, the much-awaited pavement management plan redo. So we'll be looking for that in early 2020.
Okay. And let's see, I do have a question. Let's see, when Gina departed a month or two ago, has a replacement been found?
We have an ongoing recruitment right now. That job closes on Thursday, so if anybody is interested in an admin position with Public Works, get your application in to the city, and so those are open until Thursday at 5.
And let's see. Yeah, what's the status of the applications for PWAB replacement? Is there any deadline on that yet, or is that in the works?
I believe the clerk is advertising for that, but I'm not sure what the schedule is. I didn't check with Dana and Heather before I came here.
Thank you. Do you see us having our next meeting on December 18th?
That's typical one that we do not have.
That's why I'm questioning.
Yes, I would say no, that we're not going to have that meeting unless the board desires, the board chair desires to break with tradition and have a week before Christmas meeting.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting to our next meeting, possibly in January.
Thank you.